Hello everyone and welcome back to the Road to FIDE Master series, in which I am covering my games, my tournament games with analysis. This is a special episode because the tournament is also special. I am playing in the Polish First League and it's a team tournament, meaning that there are 6 players aside playing against the other 6 players, so club versus club, and all the individual results sum up to the team results. So I'm not only playing for myself, my goals, my rating, but also for the team goals, and the dynamic is such that it changes a lot psychologically and in terms of the tactics for the whole match as a team, as an individual player. So plenty of new factors coming in. I am excited to start the tournament, and I am proudly representing the team Sparta Białołęka, and unfortunately though we are listed as the team number 22 out of 22, meaning that we are the lowest rated team, so we will have to fight for each point in each game. But this is a good dynamic because it means that there has to be a lot of fighting, and I like that. So without further ado, now you know what I'm playing in. Let's see the first game of the first match. In this one I played against what can you tell, higher rated opponent, right? Over 2300 FIDE Master. However, I felt like I might be having a good chance of fighting for a full point because, well, our team has to find the points somewhere, so our rating difference was not so big, therefore I was the one that had to make a full point, let's say. So with that mindset I decided to play some sharp chess, not only fighting for a draw. So let's see how it went. My opponent opted for knight f3 move. I was not expecting it really. I had little to no time for preparation and I mostly looked at the e4 move, so this was a surprise, and because of that already on the move number 3 I spent more or less 10 minutes on thinking like what to do, how should I continue my development. I had a few ideas in mind, however in the end I opted for d5 and d takes c4, which I was actually preparing with white pieces. So now I just switched the sides, but I remember the preparation a little bit and I went into this variation. My opponent castled and I knew that queen a4 was more critical line. I may be mistaken because I'm not that sure about it, but anyway I decided to try to protect the c4 pawn with the idea that I might keep it. Opponent did not allow me to do that, however after c5 and knight c6 normal developing moves, my idea is that if my opponent actually takes the pawn on c4, I have this very important tactical resource of b5. The point being that obviously the pawn is hanging, but thanks to the queen being attacked and the file being opened, I am actually the one that is gaining a lot of advantage, and for that reason opponent has to just simply go back, and as you can tell he just wasted 2 moves here and there on retaking my pawn, so I should be fine with the space advantage on the queen side and all other stuff. So I was pretty happy with the result of the opening, let's say, and I continued development simply with bishop b7, and at this point I felt like it's a critical moment, so I took a lot of time and I considered many lines, but I felt off a little bit. I didn't feel so sharp, meaning that I was spending a lot of time but not using it properly, so the time just passed by and I didn't find anything specific. So instead of just trying to be tricky and going for a move like this or maybe like this, so plenty of moves that I can play, I decided to keep it simple, not go into too much details, and just simply finish development with the rule that I'm always telling my students, meaning that just develop your pieces, castle as quickly as possible, and spend only 1 move per piece. So for example such move would not work then, so I decided to go for bishop e7, castle, take, knight c3, and now since my pawn is attacked I can try to play like this. I can once again try to play this move in between. This one is a nice idea. I can also just try to trade the rooks, but if I want to keep it simple I stick to the idea and played queen b6 defending the pawn. So actually at this point there was another moment that I had to spend a little bit time on, since all of my pieces are has now moved, right? So well, it's the time to move some piece for the second time in the game. But I also wanted to keep it simple, so while my opponent was thinking, I was evaluating the position strategically, and since the position is quite static, not dynamic, I felt like I don't need to calculate too many variations. So when I considered, let's say, this position on his time, and I knew that perhaps he will try to play like this, I decided that strategically he wants to put a lot of pressure on my c5 pawn. So after the move, I spent like half a minute and I just took on a1, just deflecting the rook from being here. And I tried to simplify my thought process, and thanks to that, from the move number 10 to around this moment, I got like over 30 minutes advantage on clock. So my strategy worked, and I was quite happy with it, not only because of the time situation, but also because of the position situation. I felt like I cannot be that much worse here, because after further exchanges, I have the bishop pair. I am looking towards the b2 pawn that might be a weakness in a little bit of time, so I felt like I should be happy. My opponent decided to play knight d2. I was not expecting this move, because all the time throughout few past moves I was considering mostly knight e4 in many specific variations, let's say. Knight d2 was a little bit of a surprise, because it's not going forward, if you know what I mean. Like, my opponent is not really putting a lot of fight, and it's not putting me under pressure, so I felt like I am just cruising throughout the game. And obviously, if he tries to exchange the bishops, I will happily do it. So I took, and I played rook c8, developing move. So as you can tell, still simply following the simple chess rules. At that point, knight f3 was played, so I was really unsure what was that about. My opponent used two tempos to just exchange the bishops. Maybe he was scared of my bishop pair, or maybe he decided that the position is static, so he has time to do it. However, I felt like it's not really, as I said, going forward, so I decided to take over the initiative. I would really love to play a move like c4, trying to exchange those pawns, maybe create semi-open b file or something of that case. So I decided to drop back the bishop to protect the knight and be able to push it. So after my opponent played a move h4, I pushed with my c-pawn, takes, queen a4, and I decided to go back with the bishop. So same thing as my opponent did here, I did there. However, I did it for the different reasons, because bishop had to protect the knight. Now it does not have to do it, so he is back now here trying to attack this pawn. So I felt like my going back and forth was more or less understandable. At that point, my opponent decided to go for the queen trade. I didn't want to do it here. I wanted the rook to be on the 7th rank, so now I took it. The difference is that on the 5th rank, the rook would control the d5 square. Now it's not controlling it, so I am happily jumping there with the knight, and I am asking my opponent how is he going to deal with all this pressure on the c3 knight, b2 pawn, and so on. And at that point, I felt like I might be taking over the whole game, not only due to the position on the board, but also due to the time trouble that my opponent was in, thanks to my strategy in the middle game. However, I just missed this knight d1 move. Seems very passive, but it's very good at the same time, not allowing me to create real danger on the b2 or e2 weaknesses. For example, if my opponent exchanged, now I have two connected pawns that might be either going like that and the c-pawn is running, or if my opponent, let's say, decide to play move like this, trying to defend the pawn, I might try play d4, c3, and so on. So I am the one that is having the initiative, many threats, and my opponent has little time, so I felt like, okay, this might be it. However, knight d1 was played, and I was really clueless how to continue. And now, guys, I will try to introduce you to the, let's say, team kind of tournament. Why do I say that? Because already at that time, we were losing the match. So if there are 6 boards, it means that if there is 3-3, it's a draw, right? But 3.5 points would be enough for any side to win. And at that time, in this moment, we were down 2.5 to half a point. So quite a big loss already. And I knew that there are 3 boards left. Mine, board number 1, board number 4. So on board number 4, our player was winning basically. On the board number 1, it was very complex situation. So I felt like if board number 4 player wins, I win, then we might even go for a win in the match, even though we were at that time, as I said, losing 2.5 to a half of a point. So I decided, okay, let's just go for some initiative attack and play it not so safely. And I decided to start rook d with the rook d8. trying to ask my opponent how is he going to deal with this knight, because I can have some discovery checks and trying to change a little bit the position. So my opponent just went back with the rook, very passive once again, and now is the time, okay, let's go for a full point. I decided to play g5 for the team. However, if I was playing it for myself, I would perhaps still try to focus on this pawn, somehow try to take it in the favorable situation and outcome and so on, so maybe I would be able to create some initiative there, but as you can tell, Eval Bar says it's 0.00 all the time, so yeah, perhaps there was nothing really there, but I decided to play g5, as I've said, for the team, trying to make things more interesting. However, I am also talking about it very often to my students. Sometimes your idea might be right, but the execution is very, very wrong. So my idea to play g5 objectively was fine. It was for the team, so the team should be happy, right? However, idea was right, execution was wrong, because after e4 move, I should perhaps just jump to b4, try to then jump to d3, maybe attack the b2 weakness that way. I played g4, and now the things are getting tricky, because I wanted to play fast, to play confidently. However, my opponent just simply played knight h2, which I've missed, and it's not the matter of the time trouble that he is now in, it's the matter of me losing the grasp of the position situation, losing many pawns, blundering them all. So yeah, not ideal when you want to win. Obviously, at that time I should have, as I've said, played knight b4 and it would be okay. After g4 and knight h2, the problem is that my opponent is attacking the pawn, the knight, and if I jump somewhere with the knight, for example to b4, my pawn is lost, it's attacked, the knight is jumping back to e3, which is an amazing square for it. So by this blunder, not only I blundered the pawn, but the whole initiative, and this was very, very inconvenient, let's say. Anyway, also at this time I was like broken mentally. I knew that, okay, I decided to play with bishop to g7 in order to have the d4 square open for my rook, and I grabbed the bishop and moved it to d4. So I was like already psychologically broken. I couldn't calculate the variations properly, and after knight e3 I felt like I might be losing even another pawn, because if I even play like this after rook a4, the point is that if I move the knight, perhaps there will be enough exchanges to draw a game, but for sure not to win one. So for that reason I decided against playing rook c8 or rook b8. At that point I went with knight d3, giving away the other pawn, with the little trick to it. After knight d2 e3 I had quite a nice move, knight takes f2, because after king takes and the knight is pinned, so I can take this one. Now I'm attacking here, this pawn is weak, the second rank is weak, so I felt like, okay, I might be getting something. However, my opponent was perhaps aware of it, even though he was still in the time trouble, and he just dropped back the c4 knight, and the tricks is not working like that anymore, and I'm, as you can tell, 2 pawns down. And only 5 moves ago I was more than okay. So yeah, pretty bad blunder, especially if you are playing for the team. I'm not happy with myself, but I still continued fighting, because as you can tell from the Eval Bar, computer says, okay, it's not done yet. So I decided to play rook b8, after rook b1, knight c5, with the hopes of him playing f3, which would allow me to plant my rook here. I am pressurizing a lot of squares, a lot of points in the opponent's camp, and it's quite uneasy for him to really play something and try to get activity, and there are not so many ways of doing that. So yeah, and those were my hopes. However, at that point my opponent played knight c2, and I started to panic a little bit, because I knew that I had to go back with the bishop, and after b4 the pawn is just a healthy pawn up and is going down the board very fast. However, thankfully, after b5 I had an idea in mind just before the time control, because guys, after 40 moves we are getting additional half an hour, so at that point it's the move number 39, the last one before having the time added to your clock. So it is the moment that many people are blundering the games. So at that point I knew that I only have to make 2 more moves in order to get a half an hour. So I calculated till the end till my last seconds and I opted for knight d2 and bishop f8 continuation, with the idea that I am attacking the pawn, I am attacking the rook, I am taking away few more squares, so if the rook tries to stay here on the b file, I will just simply try to play it all night long like that, and if he tries to go to g4, obviously he can try doing that, but also then he can try to give me the perpetual check, he can try to attack the pawn, after which I will perhaps go back too. So all in all, there is no really a way for him, fortunately, to defend this pawn properly, and if that's the case, he's losing that one, and at the same time I have no possibility to really win this game. So yeah, I just offered a draw without being equal yet, and my opponent accepted it because of the team situation. So still it was 2.5 to half a point. However, our board number 4 went from completely winning to completely losing position, so I felt like, okay, if he lost already, he would have the opponent team would have 3.5 points against our half a point, meaning that they would already win a match. So my opponent from the game could just, be relaxed, chillaxed, and try to win this game with one more pawn. So I decided, okay, the match is over, the match is lost anyway, so I will at least save myself and offer a draw without a pawn. My opponent accepted, just making sure his team is winning. So yeah, that's the case. Unfortunately, as I told you guys, we are losing this match. As of now, is 4 versus 1, and our board number 1 is still fighting, but mostly for himself, not for the team, since the team already lost. So quite a painful day for the team. I was not happy either with my play, because I was cruising in the middle game because I kept it simple mostly. However, when the situation occurred, when the opportunity was there around move number 30, I pushed g-pawn a little bit too far. I blundered one and two second pawn, and from that point onwards it was quite hard to get anything. So yeah, a draw is a draw. Let's see the review. Hopefully it will be a nice one, but I am not expecting this review to be pleasing to me either way, because as I've told you guys, I'm not happy with my overall play, and yeah, that's the case. Okay, I believe it's lagging, so perhaps I will just tell you that it should be over 90, since as you can tell, Eval bar was not moving that much during the game. So yeah, and that's that. We lost. Tomorrow is the other day, hopefully a better one. Thank you all for watching. 97 to 97, now you can see it, and yeah, we'll see each other next time tomorrow for the round number 2. If you like this episode and if you can't wait to many more interesting dynamics of the team play, drop a like and a subscription. We'll see each other tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye. Bye bye.